The Gemara goes through the possibilities of a woman as to why she has a schus tola. And the Gemara says, schus demai, why might it be that she has a postponement of her Sotah effect? Says the Gemara, schus to Torah. If you want to say it's because she has a schus of Talmud Torah, that can't be, because she has no chiyuv in Talmud Torah. Ella, it must be schus to mitzvah. And how do we understand schus to mitzvah? After all, schus to mitzvah mi magna kule hai. After all, is the schus of a mitzvah really going to protect her so much that it would postpone the effects of the Sotah? After all, v'hatanya, we have a brisa that says, "Zu darsha v'nacham bar yosi kiner mitzvah v'torah or." We know the pasuk says kiner mitzvah v'torah or. And how do we understand this pasuk? Says the Gemara, Tala kasev as a mitzvah b'ner v'as Torah b'or. There's gradations. On the lower level, the mitzvah is smaller than the Torah, and therefore the mitzvah is compared to a candle, and the Torah is compared to full light. As a mitzvah b'ner, what is it that we mean when we're equating a mitzvah to a candle? Lomar loch, ma ner enu me'ira ela lefisha. Just like it's the case that the candle is only going to shine for a small amount of time. Af mitzvah enu magina ela lefisha. So we know that a mitzvah does have a positive effect in protecting you from things, but only for a short span of time. It doesn't last forever. V'asa Torah be'or. When the pasuk says Torah or, and we therefore make a comparison between Torah and or, lomar lach, ma'or, and this too should be me'ir le'olam, just like light is going to help you. As long as there's light, it's going to help you. If the sun is out, you're good to go. Af Torah megina le'olam. So therefore, if you're going to say that the schus of a mitzvah is what helped this woman, maybe you're wrong about that. And ve'omer, we have another Mari Makom, the last of the short lines, b'yisalecha tanche osach. This is a pasuk that we read when we do a siyum. Now we're going to see why we read this pasuk when we have a siyum, because the drush of this pasuk is gorgeous. That means that when you go in this way of Torah, that learning Torah in this world will give you a good life in this world. That's zumisa, that it'll give you a good life in the next world. So I should say one is in death and then the other is in the next world. And the Gemara gives a mashal. A person is walking and it's pitch black dark outside. Can't see a thing. He's concerned about thorns. He's concerned about holes in the ground. He's concerned about other things that might hurt him. And he's also concerned about animals. And he's also concerned about people who are dangerous people. And in addition to all of that, he has no idea what direction he's facing in. Then he's dan lo avuka shel or, and he picks up a torch. Fine. Then, if you have a little bit of a torch, if you have a nair, something like that, then that will protect you from the small distractions on the way. You won't walk into a tree. You won't fall into a pit. Good. But you're still going to be concerned about animals that you can't see running from far to attack you, or from people who are trying to rob you and to mug you. Those people you can't see. And still, says the Gemara, all that is about an avuka. That's just about holding a torch. But what happens when it's daylight? Says the Gemara, halfway down on Chafal Famidal, Kevan Sha'ala Amar Shachar. Once we have a case scenario where the sun has risen, then then you can see everything from every direction, and then you're totally fine. And you still don't know what direction you're going in. We don't know what that means yet. And then the Gemara says, then finally, when you're getting to a point where you're at a crossroads and you can see some signs, this way to Tel Aviv, this way to Yerushalayim, then you finally have your bearings, and that's when you are under the best of circumstances. And Davar Acher, the Gemara says, another approach to this pasuk is Aveira mechabe mitzvah. The benefits of a mitzvah can be overridden by your performance of an Aveira. Ve'ein Aveira mechabe Torah. But if a person is steeped in Torah, then an Aveira doesn't extinguish the positive effects of Torah. Shneimar mayim rabim lo yuchlu lechabos, so I have a pasuk from Shir HaShirim. So either way you look at it, with either approach, either the first approach, that a mitzvah is only effective like a nair is effective. Once the wax is out or once the oil is out, the candle is out, you can't see anymore. So too, a mitzvah is only helpful when you're active in the mitzvah. And the second approach is a little bit different. This last davar acher is that an Aveira can extinguish the positive effects of a mitzvah, but an Aveira cannot extinguish the positive effects of Talmud Torah. Either way, if you're saying that the reason why a woman has a schus tola, why she's able to postpone the effects of the Sotah when she drinks it, and in fact she's guilty, if you're saying it's because of a mitzvah, mi magna kulehai, at the end of the day, the mitzvah is really not going to protect you as much as you thought it would. So therefore, the Gemara has to come up with an answer. And the Gemara responds as follows. Amar Rav Yosef, mitzvah, when a person is involved in a mitzvah, be'idna de asikba, during the time when a person is being osek in a mitzvah, it has two positive effects, magna umatzla. Not only does it protect you from harm, but umatzla, it protects you from doing other averas. Be'idna de lo asikba, and when a person is not involved in a mitzvah, but they've already performed the mitzvah, agune magna, you still do get protection from that mitzvah, but atzule lo matzla, but it won't stop you from doing other averas. This is an answer to our question. We said that the woman needed a schus tola. What schus was it? Talmud Torah? Can't be Talmud Torah. She's ein mitzvah v'osa, so it must be a mitzvah. But a mitzvah is not so strong. But a mitzvah is strong enough that even when you're not osek in a mitzvah, it's still magune magnet, should still protect you, and that could be the schus tola that she has. So this is going to be the Gemara's recommendation, at least at this point, that she does have protection from having performed a mitzvah. That means that any time that a woman does a mitzvah, and really anytime any of us does any mitzvah, we are given protection. We are given protection. That's what the Gemara says openly, b'fem ale, and that's in regards to the mitzvah itself. What about Torah? Now we already have our answer, but we're still going to explain pshat in the pasuk. The Gemara says Torah, when it comes to the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, bein beidna de asikba, uvein beidna de lo asikba, whether or not we are currently learning Torah as we are right now, or even after we finish Daf Yomi, we're going to go back home and we're going to get ready for bed, and we're not necessarily being osek in Torah. But if a person learns properly, they get the double benefit of magna umatzla. They get the benefit of being protected from bad things happening to them. And they also get the benefit of not being able, literally not being able to do other averas. The Torah will override your yetzer hara and you will not be able to fail. So how do people fail? Because sometimes when we're learning, we're not really learning. And sometimes when we do mitzvahs, we're not really doing mitzvahs properly. There are levels within each of these things. I remember many, many, many years ago, someone snuck a video into Rav Shlomo Zalman's, they put a video camera in his study of him learning. And he sat there with his head down for 20 minutes, chuckling, and did not move one time. He moved for chuckling, but he didn't pick up his head one time. That's called Talmud Torah. That's Hasmada. That's gorgeous, and that's uncommon. Yeah, our attention spans are super short. So, but that's what the Gemara says. Yeah, that's how he died. Couldn't get him. Couldn't get him. So that's Magno Matzah. What?
It said even when you stop learning,
that's true. That's true. That's a kasha. What are you looking up, David?
I happen to be learning in the morning. I'm not pulling with the young. I just saw this.
You're pulling a Rabbi Adler. I know how this works. Yeah. So, is this the David Sugya you're looking up?
No, it's with the theater.
That what?
They couldn't get to him.
The shliach of the Malcolm up.
Right.
Get to him.
Right. And they have shown it was this.
No, so he ended up having to break a tree. And then
So that's a kasha. That's a kasha in the Gemara, on our Gemara, obviously, because our Gemara seems to say that if you learn Torah, then you're magno matzah. Right. Yeah, you kind of did. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Isn't your Diva Binyamin in your name? David Ben Sion. That was close.
Malcolm Mavis is at the door. It's not a normal situation.
So I was kind of going in that direction in my head, is that everybody dies at some point. Like, how do we intersect the activities of the Malach HaMavis with a person's Magenu Matzah? I don't know. Either way, if the Gemara is going in the direction that we have over here, and even according to those stories over there, they had to be stopped in order to be killed. So we should be learning a lot of Torah. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So why does the Mishnah says we can
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it seems like the Mishnah is talking about Torah.
Correct. But that's only one shita. The second shita rejects that. That was the shita of Ben Azai. And then the Gemara rejects that. Where's the Gemara? Here it is. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yeshua says that that's not correct. That's not pshat. It's true, but it's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful question. And I'm going to add one more question to what you're saying, which is that a woman may not have a chiyuv to learn a daf Gemara like we do, but a woman does have an obligation to know how to behave. She has to know how to keep halacha. And the way my Rabbeim said it when I was in Smicha is that when a woman finishes Yoredeya, when she finishes all of Shulchan Aruch and all the Mishnah Berurah, she knows it klor, then we can debate about Gemara, about whether or not a woman, all the chakir is lakan or lakan. Fine. But Lamaisa, the answer to your question, the Gemara already gave. It's not that the Torah is not mugging, but it's not mugging to this level. It has to not mugging to this level. When a person does a mitzvah and their mitzvah ve'oseh, that is a more difficult mitzvah to perform, and your schar is greater. And therefore, a woman doesn't get the same hagana that she would have gotten otherwise. All right, says the Gemara. Maskifla, what's going on? We're going to look at open base measures right now. We're looking at Ma'ir Makoma. We're going to call these Binyamin moments from now on. We are. So the Gemara asks Akasha a little bit more than halfway down on Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. Maskif la Rava, should be Rava. Elameata, if all of this is true, then Doeg v'Achi Tofel, Milo Aske b'Torah, they were involved in Talmud Torah. They did learn a lot of Torah, yet they did something wrong. Amai lo higina alayhu. Why didn't the Torah protect them? So Elo Amar Rava, it must be as follows. We're going to make a little bit of a different spin from what we just learned. Elo. Okay. Elo Amar Rava, Torah, when a person is learning Torah, bi'idna da'asikba magna umatzla. When a person is in the middle of learning Torah, then magna, it protects you, and umatzla, it prevents you from doing averos. Bi'idna delo asikba, but when you're not being osek in Torah, so let's say after Daf Yomi, agune magna, yes, but atzule lo matzla. So it will protect you from harm. No, they say it's still kasha. Even when you're not learning, it should still protect you from harm. But atzule lo matzla will not prevent you from doing other averos. And what about a mitzvah? According to Rava, a mitzvah, bein bi'idna da asikba, bein bi'idna da lo asikba, whether or not a person's in the midst of doing a mitzvah or they've completed it, agune magna atzule lo matzla. They'll always have protection, but it won't always work out that way. It doesn't. You'll always have protection, but you'll still be able to do averos, unfortunately. It's not what we want to do, but it's at least theoretically possible. Now, all of this, we started with the possibility that the schus of a woman was Talmud Torah. We rejected it. And then we went to the possibility that her schus was a mitzvah. And Ravina brings us back to our first approach. Ravina Amar, Lo'olam, really schus Torah. Really, it is the case that there is a schus Torah. Wait 1 second. You said at the top of the page, you said, and I just gave you this answer, Reb Shemi, that a person who is doing a mitzvah that's Eina Mitzvah V'Osa is a lower level. Why is that not a problem according to Ravina? Because says the Gemara, Nihi granted de pekude lo mifkada. I am masking with you that her level of learning is not the same level of learning as it would be for a man. But be'agra, in regards to the schar of the mikaryan umasnayan benaihu, that there's mikra and mishnah for her children, that a woman is mamish omel, and she works with all of the preparatory things. In our era, it's buying the school bag and buying the clothing and paying the tuitions and making the lunches and all of the things that we do, that very often that wives do, sometimes husbands when they're being good husbands. All of those things are the agra. That's the reward, is that even though you're not mechuyeves as a woman in Talmud Torah, but by enabling your sons to learn, and as well, the natran hula gavraya da'asmi beis medrasha, and that they have to wait for their husbands to come home from the beis medrash, milo halgan bahadayu. Don't they at least split the rewards with their husbands? So the Gemara says, Reb Shemi, this is even a better answer to your question, which is the Gemara's new spin. You're right. A woman doesn't have a mitzvah of Talmud Torah, but if a woman is enabling her sons and or her husband to learn, that's Kodesh Kodashim, and they get half of the schar. That it's the same quality of schar. The schar that I get for being in the beis medrash is 50% of mitzvah ve'oseh, and her 50% is also 50% of mitzvah ve'oseh. Afal pi that she's an eina mitzvah ve'oseh. It's an interesting lumdus that we are giving her because she's the enabler, and therefore that works out perfectly fine. That's how the Gemara concludes in this sugya, that the reason why a woman could have a schus tola, the reason why that a woman could earn the merit of postponing the effects of Sotah is because of enabling her sons and the men in her world to be learning Torah. Says the Gemara in the Mashal, we had said, my Parashas Drachim. What is considered the Parashas Drachim? It's all Mashal for Talmud Torah. So what does Parashas Drachim have to do with Talmud Torah? So says the Gemara, 3/4 of the way down, 12 lines from the bottom, Amar Rav Chiza, Zeh Talmidei Chachamim v'Yom Misa. This is what is a Parashas Drachim. That's when a person sees a Talmid Chacham, or when they remember the Yom HaMisa. These things are grounding. They are our North Star, and they help us to see the light. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos, you never want to forget the Yom HaMisa. It always reminds you that we're from a Tipas Rucha. Fine. Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Zeh Talmid Chacham v'Yiras Chet. When it was considered Parashas Drachim, that a person knows what direction they're heading in life, number one, he agreed with the previous sheets of Rav Chiza that it should be Talmidei Chachamim, but the Yiras Chet is the next level, that a person should have a fear to do Averas. That's a Talmid Chacham who's able to learn a sugya and come out with appropriate halachic conclusions. Right, not Daf Yomi, because that's not the structure of Daf Yomi. But if a person wanted to learn a sugya properly, like you guys were all getting into the sugya, dig to the bottom and pull out all the Mari Makomos and see how the Rishonim compare the sugyas and Makos to really do it the right way. That's the right way to learn. This is a great way to get a breadth of shots, but to learn a sugya liba de hilchasa, that's Parashas Drachim. Davar Acher, in regards to, we had said it in the Brisa, we had said that there was a Davar Acher when we were trying to argue that a mitzvah might not be strong enough to protect a woman from the effects of Sotah. We had said Avera mechabe mitzvah ve'ein Avera mechabe Torah. So says the Gemara, this drasha that an Avera can override the benefits of a mitzvah, but an Avera cannot override the benefits of Torah. Amar Rav Yosef, Darshe Rab Nachman Bar Yossi Lahai Kraki Sinai. He said he brought it's the highest of levels. This for him was like the spitz. Be careful. If you do a mitzvah, that's great. But if you do an avera, they cancel each other out. So you have to be careful. And again, how does this work? We don't know. Quid pro quo. If I do mitzvah X and avera Y, do they balance out perfectly? Don't know. And says the Gemara, and if not for the mistaken drasha that Doeg and Achitophel had made about David, as we'll soon see, lo radfu basar David, they never would have attacked David. The pasuk says, "Lemor Elokim azvu." They thought that David left HaKadosh Baruch Hu because he did the avera with Bathsheba. My Dorish, what was their drasha? The pasuk says, "Lo yireh erbas davar," and they thought he did erbas davar. And these people of Achitophel and Doeg, einan yodin she'aver mechabe mitzvah ve'ein aver mechabe Torah. They made a mistake. They misunderstood how the metaphysics of mitzvos works. They thought an avera is also going to be mechabe someone who's a Talmud Chacham. That's not true. An avera does not cancel out the merit of Talmud Torah. My boz yavuzu lo, that there's a pasuk in shiur. Let's read the whole pasuk. Lemor, that's the wrong pasuk. Ma'im rabim, we said if there's a lot of water, lo yuchlu lechabos es ahava, the huge amounts of water are not able to extinguish my love for you. Uneharos lo yishtefuha, and the pasuk writes that rivers cannot extinguish it. Im yitain ish as kol hon beso, even if they gave all of their money be'ahava, Boz Yavuzulo will be embarrassing for them. What is this pasuk talking about? So my Boz Yavuzulo, 4 lines from the bottom. The Gemara says, Amar Ula, Lo Shimon Achi Azariah, Lo Rabbi Yochanan de Benesia. These two pairs of Shimon and his brother Azariah and Rabbi Yochanan of the Benesia, they had a relationship of Yisachar Zvulun. One would learn and the other would cover the costs. Ella, what does the pasuk mean when it says Boz Yavuzulo? That's talking about a case of Kehillel v'Shavna. Hillel and Shavna should have had a case scenario of Yisachar Zvulun learning. Tichiyasa Rav Dimi, Amar Hillel v'Shavna Achi Habu. They were in fact brothers. Hillel asak b'Torah, as we know the famous stories of Hillel. Hillel is the one who sets the bar for those who are poor in learning Torah. Don't tell me that you're poor and you're not going to learn. Hillel calls out those people and says, I was poor, I had no money, I crawled up onto yeshiva, I looked in through the skylight. And says the Gemara, Shavna, Avariska, he was in business, he was in nursing homes, he was making a mint. Lesof, only many, many years later, after all of the years of Hillel learning under tremendous distress, Amar Le, then Shavna wakes up, he says, Ta, ne'arav liflog, let's get into a deal together and we'll split. That's really cute. After Hillel's been straining and stressing for his entire life, you now want to take a benefit of giving me your money so that I've already learned for decades. You're late to the party.
Now he's Hillel.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see that in a minute too. Yotzis Abaskov Amra, imitain ishes called hon beso. Now you want to give me your money? Boz yavuzula. That's a bizayon. That's unacceptable. So that's what the pasuk means when we talk about Yisachar Zvulun. If you're going to do it from the beginning. Don't come in the 11th hour and be a champion and say, now that you've learned for 50, 60 years, I'd love to split the benefits with you. That's not how to do it. On the top of Chaf Aleph Hamid Beis, we're going to go to the very top line of Chaf Beis Hamid Aleph. The Gemara says, Omer ben Azai Chayav Adam Lalamed Esbito Torah b'chule, like we just saw. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kol Hamalamed Esbito Torah Malamda Tiflus. The basic understanding of the word Tiflus is intimacy. It's talking about intercourse. The Gemara says, Tiflus Sal Kedaitach. Is that really what you taught your daughter if you taught her Torah? What does that mean? That doesn't even make any sense. So says the Gemara, and we will reject this. It's as if you taught her tiflus. What does that mean? Take a look at Rashi on the top line. Second Rashi, because once she gains the wisdom of Torah, himivina, then she understands our mumis, then she understands how to be sneaky. She's got the Yiddish cup, she knows how to dance between the lines. Then she'll do things wrong, do things usher, but she'll know she'll know where the landmines are. She'll know where not to step so that nobody finds out. That's what the Gemara says. We don't want to teach a woman this level of wisdom because we're afraid that she'll abuse it. What about men? We learn Torah. Okay. The Gemara says it's an issue with women, and we're going to reject it in a moment. Amar Rabbi Abo, my time with Rabbi Eliezer. What is the reason for Rabbi Eliezer? That with Chachma, we have Orma, we have an akmimus, we have a curvedness that we're able to be sneaky. That when a person has wisdom put into their head, you learn a lot of different math and logic models, and you can manipulate because of your logic models. It's like playing chess. You know how to beat the other guy because you know all the moves. Either Rabbanon. Not everybody agreed to this pshat that it's ki'ilu malamda tiflus. According to the Rabbanon, hi ein chachma, hi ani chachma, my avidle, says the Gemara, not for the way he said it, that for those who have wisdom, they're able to dance around Averos, but rather, says the Gemara 6 lines down, mi boile lechad Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina. Damar Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina, ein divrei Torah miskaimen, ela b'mi shemamid atzmo arum alehem. A person can only fulfill Divrei Torah if they stand in regards to Talmud Torah ki'ilu they're arum, meaning that they're poor. And says the Gemara, Shenemar ani chachma shachanti arma. This arma is a nakedness of wealth. And a person who learns mitoch dachkus, a person who learns out of financial oppression when they really don't have a lot going for them, and then they learn, that's next level. When we learn, and Baruch Hashem, it's not a bad thing, but most of us are, relatively speaking, we're affluent people. So we don't struggle to eat. Overall, we're fine. So then, l'maisa, our Torah is not as miskayim as it would be had we been under tighter circumstances. The Gemara does praise people who are wealthy, who take care of their money. I'm not saying we need to fork everything over, but there is such an idea that a person who learns mitoch dachkos, they learn out of oppression, that they have a greater learning. And Amar Rav Yochanan, ein divrei Torah miskayim al b'misha mesim atzmo kimi she'eno. A person who makes himself completely batel to Talmud Torah. Shenemar ve'achachma me'ayin timtza. This is a beautiful taich in the pasuk. Where is wisdom? When ayin is found, when nothingness is found. So that is a humility piece. What is the same thing? Oh, the humility piece. Yeah. So here the Gemara is saying that, and this is the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, that whenever people are feeling like real gaivadik about their learning, you're not a chap. You're doing a mitzvah, don't get me wrong, and it's mugain and it's matzil and all the other things we learned about. But you're not you're not special because you're learning. That was your whole reason for being created. You can't. It's like telling Michael Jordan, "Oh, did you hit a layup? What are you talking about? That's ABCs. That's like the basics." So that's what the Gemara says. V'achachma me'ayin timtza. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Rotze Isha, like a Mishnah had said, a cryptic line that a woman would prefer a kav, prefer a kav and tiflus than 9 kav with precious. That's what it says over here. My ka'amar. What is pshat in this line? Hachi kamar. Rotze Isha bekav tiflus. A woman would prefer one measure in regards to salary, vitiflus, but the opportunity to be with her husband. Vitiflus imo mitisha kabenu precious, than to have a very wealthy bank account, to be 9 times richer, but her husband's constantly on the road. The Balei Tosfos over here, the second Tosfos Dibur Maskal Rotze, quotes the Rabbeinu Hananel, who speaks this out fully. It's a little bit late, but basically he says this idea in full, that if a woman would prefer to have a lower salary and have her husband home regularly than to have a higher salary and to not have her husband home, beyond once a month, which is the example that the Balei Tosfos give. The Gemara continues halfway down on Chaf Aleph on the base. Who haya omer chassid shota? What is a chassid shota? Hey chidami chassid shota. What a gevaldik example. Kegon de kotava itza benara. A woman is drowning in the river. Va'amar pasnisht lav orach ar liistekule ba ve'atzula. I'm not allowed to look at a woman, and then the woman drowns and dies. 3 years ago, January, I got into a car accident on the way to Shul in Florida, and the woman in the car, who I hit her car, and it was a female driver. She was injured. I'm a trained DMT, so I took care of her. Like mamish didn't even cross my mind. That's just the way things are. My kids are like, it's mutter to touch. It's mutter to touch her. I'm like, yeah, it's mutter to touch her. What are you talking about? It's pikuach nefashos, or even if it's not, but it's an injury, and you're barhachi to do something about it. Pasha, that's considered a chassid shota. You're being too from. That's not correct. What's considered a rasha who is sneaky, who is sly? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, we know that there's a din by a bezdin that the Baalei din cannot say their piece before all the dayanim are seated together, because the dayanim have to hear each of the Baalei din at the same time when they're all present. So this guy is like, he says to the dayan, hey, Rabbi Rees, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why Shmerel over there dinged my car. I just want to give you some background. That's sneaky. That's not right. That's considered sneaky. Rabbi Abo Omer, last of the short lines, in halacha, we define a poor person who's eligible for leket shichan peah is not having more than 200 zuz. Well, let's say he only had 199, so I flipped the guy a quarter. Now he has 200. He's putter from leket shichan peah. That's sneaky. Titnan, the Mishnah writes, mishiyesh l'masayim zuz. Once you have 200 zuz, lo yita leket shichan peah ma'israni. If the guy only had 199 zuz, he could take 1,000. He could take as much money as he wants from like a shikhan peah. So who's this Rasha Arum? The guy says, how much do you have in your bank? He says 199. He goes, great, here's 200. Now you're not allowed to take like a shikhan peah. You're a Rasha Arum. It's very sneaky. It's very sly. Says the Gemara, another possibility for a Rasha Arum. Says the Gemara, this is a person who gives advice to sell nechasim mu'atim. We're talking about a case of Yerusha. And when there are nechasim mu'atim, the daughters typically get those fields. What would a Rasha Arum do? He'd say, you should sell the nechasim mu'atim, wink, wink. In other words, your sisters will get nothing. So that's not right. That if in fact people do sell the nechasim mu'atim, then that sale actually works. But to give it as advice and to shortchange the sisters on the properties that are nechasim mu'atim, that's not right. You're a Rasha Arum. Another possibility, Amar Abaye Amar, this is someone who gives advice to follow the shita of Rashbag. What's the shita of Rashbag? The Tanya, 4 lines from the bottom. Nichsi lach ve'acharich leploni. I'm giving you properties, and after you take what you take, then the second person can have the leftovers. The Yorat Harishon u'machar ve'achal. The first guy takes everything and he sells it. And what can the second person do? Hasheni motzi miyad alakuchos tivrei Rabbi. According to Rabbi, the person is allowed to go to the people who he sold it to and say, no, you're not allowed to buy that from the first guy. It really belongs to me. What did Rashbag say? Rashbag omer ein l'sheni elamash shiur rishon. Nothing. He only gets the leftovers of Rishon. If the guy who's a Rishon is a Rasha Arum, he's going to sell everything and shortchange the guy number 2, and then it's not fair. So you're a Rasha Arum if you recommend, by the way, Shitas Rashbag, just sell everything off, and then you'll get all the profits. Another couple of shitas, Rav Yosef Bar Chama Amar of Sheisha, Zeh Machriya Acherim B'or Chosab. This is a person who tries to guide others in a certain way, but he's not so from. Take a look at Rashi, the last Rashi on the page, 5 lines, 6 lines up from the bottom. Dibur Hamaschil, Machriya Acherim B'or Chosab, Re'u ve'asu kamoni, u'lechu b'derachai. Lo niskaven zeh, lo laharos atzmo kechasid be'enei abrios. Ve'ein tocho kevaru. His insides and outsides are not the same. Elo shelo yedaktiku acharav livdok b'to abosav. He's a menuva. He's a menuva. We know this of some of the great philosophers who used to have these lofty platitudes of amazing philosophy, and then they were a menuva 5 minutes later, and they knocked on the door. That's not true when you're a yid. You can't go over to somebody and say you need to act like this when you're not doing well in that area. Just don't say anything. Sometimes as parents, we have this struggle. We want our kids to do well, but it's an area in which we struggle. Okay, those are hard parenting moments. A couple more shitas, and then we'll stop at the top of the page. Rabbi Zrika Omer Amar Rav Huna says, what is this Rasha Arum? This is a great profile. This is a great profile. This guy takes every kula under the book, and when he sees you, he says, no, Chalav Yisrael. Don't, Ula Amar, this is actually the most musardik of all of them, honestly. The last one, Ula says, this is a person who is Kara V'Shana. He learns Tanakh, and Shana, he learns Mishnayos. But this is a Rasha Aram. When I was in Smicha, there was a guy who said out loud, I can't believe this actually happened, Al Paskin Hilchos Nida on my own from Maseches Nida. That guy is a Rasha Aram. Yeah. It's not, you're an Am Ha'aretz. It's also Chaim Karesh. I hope he's not watching. But for sure, I have no doubt that you would violate Isurei Kares just by reading the Masech. Okay, we'll stop right here and pick up Emir Hashem. What's today? Today, Wednesday? Okay, so tomorrow night, Emir Hashem, a blot and a half. See you then. Wishing you all a beautiful night. Sorry about the recording, gentlemen. My apologies.